Now, let's move to this story, and it's an impact on the aviation sector here in South Africa, and the prospect of SA Express ever taking off again are gone. The South Gauteng High Court today granting an order for the final liquidation of the embattled airline. The airline, of course, had been under provisional liquidation since 2020, but it seems there were no buyers. Our reporter Heidi Giokos, following that story, joining us now. Hello, Heidi. So it seems so sad, really, that SA Express wasn't able to find a buyer. It certainly seems they did try, and there is demand, surely, in the local market.
Certainly, Sally, I think it's a very sad day, especially because of the fact that this airline has been in provisional liquidation since April 2020. So it's rather concerning that nothing was really done to stop this final liquidation order. It was up to the provisional liquidators to try and perhaps secure a buyer and basically save this airline, as once it's moved into the hands of the provisional liquidator, the Department of Public Enterprises don't really have a say. But it seems as though they were unsuccessful in securing a potential buyer, and this is why they then decided to go to court and say there are no prospects to save this airline, we cannot find a buyer, therefore there needs to be a final liquidation order that is granted. The judge today in the South Gauteng High Court, of course, granting that order because there were nobody opposed the order, and it seems as though government, unions and all other parties involved did perhaps not see the potential of saving this airline. It's a very difficult market to tap into, and this airline has not been operating since 2020. But we got a chance to speak to the Dynamic People's Union, who were the first to respond and were actually in court today, and they are very unhappy with the fact that there has been no government intervention. Let's listen in on that.
The government had a capacity to can even intervene, in the sense that they were supposed to oppose because they had money. Somebody with a war chest capital was supposed to come on board. As the union, we are still a newly formed trade union. We do not have financial resources to can save this. But had we have financial masses, we would have saved the situation. But it's very much a sad reality that is happening today.
Yeah, I mean, it's absolutely devastating for all the people associated with the airline, but also for potential consumers, because we know there's not enough competition in the local market at the moment, is there?
No, there isn't, Sally. I think after Comair, which had Kulula and British Airways stopped operating, there was an even bigger demand for domestic flights, and there was a huge gap that could have possibly been filled. We also know that Mango has been under business rescue for over a year now. So there's definitely a demand and a market for domestic flights, and one would think that perhaps the Department of Public Enterprises would have tapped into this demand and try and save SA Express. But just a brief engagement with the Department of Public Enterprises, they do not have capacity to basically save another airline. We know that there has been a lot of money that's been thrown into South African Airways, being taken out of business rescue, and now having found a strategic equity partner. That process is still underway. But the sad reality is that government, of course, had to pick its battles and decided that perhaps SA Express is not an airline that can be saved. If you look at how many jobs have been lost, these jobs were immediately terminated when the airline went into provisional liquidation in April of 2020. But I think the reality has really sunken in for these workers, because they are now considered as creditors, and they would perhaps get some sort of money that would be paid out to them. We're not sure what that is. But I want us to listen to what the South African Cabin Crew Association had to say, because they've also been at the forefront of trying to put pressure on governments and other stakeholders when it comes to, for example, SA Express and Mango. Let's listen to Saka on this matter.
It is devastating for so many. I mean, SAA has lost a whole lot of employees. Mango has gone, and we're trying to salvage that. Express is gone. So the aviation industry is not doing well at all. And the government, that is in charge of SOEs has also not played their part in terms of trying to protect these particular employees or try to get them some sort of cash value so that they can, at least part ways amicably. So aviation is not only bad for workers, it is bad for the daily traveler, because try book a ticket in these days to Durban. It is ridiculous. The market is raising prices because there's no competition. And I mean, the airlines are simply taking all of these routes and they're just becoming bigger and they're capitalizing on the market. So it's not a good time. And it's about time that we get a comment from the DPE and their position on SA Express. They failed to oppose at any point.
It's going to be interesting, Heidi. I'm going to be speaking to Lyndon Burns, aviation expert, later this evening. And it'll be interesting to find out from him if he agrees with SACA that really the Department of Public Enterprises could have done more to rescue SA Express. And the point she makes is a good one, actually, because I was just thinking about what was said in court today at the Senzo Mayiwa trial. And one of the reasons why Tumelo Madlala didn't arrive on Monday is apparently he couldn't get a ticket up from Durban to arrive in time. And in fact, he's being asked to produce his ticket tomorrow to show that he had tried. So, Heidi, we are in a difficult situation. We were also hearing that there's hope that Mango might be saved. Reports coming out of Parliament today. They might have a buyer. And with so much potential competition, one was wondering why the reluctance to invest in the airline industry.
Yes, I think it becomes a lot more complicated and there's a lot more red tape, Sally, when it's a state-owned entity. And that is just reality and that's fact of the matter. Just thinking about the story that I did yesterday about the potential grey listing of South Africa because investors are thinking twice about investing in South Africa because of the illicit cash flows, money laundering, corruption that happens. And we know that SA Express has been mentioned in the Zondo reports, where there were serious irregularities when it came to SA Express, contracts that were questionable, contracts that should have never happened or been allocated to SA Express in the first place. So it's a very concerning picture. And according to the business rescue practitioners today in Parliament reporting back to the Department of Public Enterprises, they have indicated that there's a potential strategic equity partner. But if we look at history and we look at what happened with SAA, that could take a very long time. Yes, it might not take long for the airline to kick off, and there might still be talks between a strategic equity partner and Mango, and they might be able to start flying sooner rather than later. But how much money is going to be needed? How much money is going to be pumped in? What's going to be interesting is what we can hear from, I'm diverting a bit, but it's important to highlight this, what we're going to hear from the medium-term budget policy statement in October by Finance Minister, whether or not any money is going to be allocated to SAA, to Mango, because as much as an SEP has been allocated and found for both SAA and Mango, is more money going to be needed? And at the end of the day, domestic flights are a huge challenge. There's a massive demand, and government is possibly missing out on the opportunity to tap into this market.
Yeah, very interesting indeed. Thank you so much for that update. That's our reporter, Heidi Giokos. Let's now move to the latest news.